Hello everyone. I believe I'm now live. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes late. Um, sorry, just checking I am live. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes late as usual. My laptop decides to throw Facebook out the window when I tried to set up the video. I really need to get my iMac back out. Happy pre-Christmas week for those of you celebrating Christmas coming up. I hope you're all winding down with work, your businesses if you have them, or making some time away from your studies to spend with family this Christmas. I'm certainly excited. I've got a wedding on Friday, which is, I'm sorry, also why I look like this, because I've been cleaning glass cylinders and tea light holders all morning. So a real life wedding stylist situation here. So I'm jumping on after washing all the wax off myself. My least favourite thing about decor is is the washing. Um, right, I'm going to crack on with today's session. I can see one person is joining us live. Hello. Say hi or feel free to drop any questions in the group. And for those of you watching on catch up, I hope you find this useful. So today we're talking about putting together a wedding styling quote. Now, a while back we talked about things like packages and pricing. So, you know, we're going to kind of presume that you've kind of got, hey, Becky, can you hear me okay? Just let me know, Becky. It's hard to tell on my screen if I'm going a bit, if the signal's a bit dodge. Anyway, yeah, I'm working on the presumption that you've already got, perfect, thanks Becky, you've already got a styling package or price in place and you've done that kind of work. You're starting getting inquiries from clients, or you've already got inquiries from clients but you want to improve the way you deal with those inquiries. And then specifically we're going to look at how to put together a quote. So I've kind of just done it in 5 steps. And I'm going to start with step 1, of course, which is gather your information. So the key thing that is easy to underestimate in the early stages of your business is how much information you need to put together a quote. Now, I'm not saying you have to go and spend half a day with a couple to get that information, but it's worth setting up a process where you can gather the information you need and also allow time to research any information if you're just starting out in the industry and you're not quite sure of some of the questions the clients have asked or what costs to allow for. Then you need to have the time to set up your process and do your research and gather your information. So I've also talked about systems in the past, but when a client inquires with you, whether that's via whatever systems you have set up. So for me, that would be via my website form or via email. Very occasionally, I might get a call. On the weekend, I had a WhatsApp inquiry, which was a first. Or some of you may answer DMs. Occasionally, I will do that. But ultimately, I'd rather guide people through to my website form or drop me an email. So that inquiries come through, and you need to have a process of then talking to the client and gathering information in order for you to hopefully put together a proposal that they will hopefully sign up before they book you. It would be very unusual unless it was something like on the day for someone to just go on your website, fill out the form and say, yes, I want to book you. This is an industry where connection is key. They will want to know more about the way you work, if you're a good fit for each other, especially if it's a full plan you're going to be working on for a long time, for those of you that are planners out there, as well as stylists. And so most of the time, the process would be inquiry, send out a brochure or service guide or a link to a private page on your website where you've got more information about your services. Once they've seen that and they've said they want to book in a consultation, you've either sent them a link to book in a consultation or you've emailed them some consultation times, and you're meeting with the client to gather information. I've talked about this before, so you want to ensure that you've got a form to either send out in advance or to go through on the call, and you want to ask as many questions and get inside the couple's heads so that when you go to sit down and write the quote, you've got as much information as possible. And there are a few key things you can put you can gather at this gathering information stage to make your quote stand out a bit. One of the things I do is to write down lots of keywords. Styling is a creative visual thing. And so if the client on the call says, you know, our vision for the wedding is really romantic in blushes and pale white, and we want it to really be soft and elegant and stylish and abundant with florals, you could write down every single one of those words: abundant with florals, stylish, soft, romantic, elegant, and put that into your quote. When it comes to winning wedding clients, I don't think it's enough to just send an invoice or a sheet of, you know, a document with a cost breakdown. You need to fluff it up. This is a more personal relationship on what is one of the most important days of their lives, and they are going to expect a certain amount of fluff, a certain amount of feeling special. So when you pull together that quote, you're not just gathering information on their budget and the kind of things that they want to include for their wedding, but you're also trying to get to know them and their vision. Because vision is really important with styling. If you can get a grasp on their vision from the very beginning, then you can easily sell your services to them. And when it comes to actually doing the design, it's already kind of started in your head. So that was step one, gather your information. Step two is decide on your format. Again, loosely touched on this before. In the early stages of my business, it was, well, for me, it was an InDesign doc because I used InDesign at the time, but these days a Canva document, a Canva template, purchasing a template from Wedding Academy shop, or setting something up in Google Drive if you use Google Drive. But you want to think about the format of how you're going to deliver your quote. If you're already investing in client management systems or planning software, then you can use those to deliver your quote. You know, Aisle Planner has a proposal tool, Dubsado, you can send all your proposals through. And things like Dubsado are great for managing workflows and making things go smoothly, because you can set up for a proposal to go out to the client. They can click a button to say they accept it, or and include any further comments. Then that can trigger an invoice that you just need to, you know, the system can automatically add their personal details to that you've already uploaded as part of your inquiry process, and then that can trigger the contract, and that so on and so forth. So that can be really good if you're a little bit more established or you've got the money to invest right out from your business. So think about the format. Are you buying a template? Are you setting up a document? Are you using a system like Aisle Planner or Dubsado or one of those tools? Whatever you do, make sure that it is branded, and that in your collecting information, that you've got information you need for the proposal. The last thing you want to do is send out a proposal without your logo or branding or contact information on, so that when they go through maybe more than one proposal, because be prepared, they may be contacting a variety of stylists, yours isn't just lost and they're like, who was that one from again? And also that you've acknowledged their key details. Approximate guest number, names of the couple, location or venue, date or preferred date window, and their contact details. And you can put that all on the quote, so that it's very obvious who it's for and who it's from. Don't just think they're only talking to you and they're going to know that when they sit down and do some Wedmin and look at a bunch of proposals, because sometimes they're contacting multiple people. What I don't think, as I said before, is I don't think you want to go into an accounting software like QuickBooks or an invoice template on Canva and send them an invoice with a few bits of breakdown on. I just don't think that is enough in the wedding industry, where people want to see something that's going to get them really excited about their wedding. So deciding on the format is key in that way. Quickest way to do that is to purchase a template. It's already done for you. You personalize it with your logo or your business name or what have you, and then you're good to go. So step 3 is working on the actual quote pricing itself. Now this is going to go back to prices and packages that we have touched on before. So as I said, you kind of already need to have that established. And as I've talked about, and you know, Becky, who's I think still watching live, is a great example. Is we're both stylists, but we both offer different kind of packages, or we did at the beginning. I believe Becky offers packages that include florals and decor because that's her specialism. I generally, my styling service is for me. It's you're paying me to design, style, source, and deliver your wedding design. And then I will bring in a florist, I will bring in a decor company, I will bring in a linen company, I will bring in a tableware company, that kind of thing. So obviously that impacts your quote because for me, I'm mainly putting in the costs for my service, my time, and then any expenses. Whereas if you are pulling together a quote where you work on the basis that you provide a certain amount of the florals and decor, then you're going to need to include a breakdown of that in the quote. One thing I will say is you don't have to break down every cost. You don't have to say, like mileage to the floral wholesaler, a courier to the decor company, or what have you. But you can do breakdowns. I did do one styling package recently where they particularly wanted to work with one person who was just going to come up with an indicative cost, and then they were going to arrange everything. So basically, I gave them a rough quote, and I'd contacted my suppliers, put in provisional orders for furniture, tableware, decorations. We're hiring in plants, and then I'm providing some of the other decor and linens. And I basically gave them a package price for all of it. I don't tend to do that because when you are shouldering the cost for other suppliers, you then have the liability with the suppliers. So that is a consideration when you're doing quotes for packages. You may want to build in, well, you will want to build in to your T's and C's and possibly costs, things to cover breakage, security deposits, anything like that. Because if you are doing one package price and sourcing with other suppliers, then you have the liability with them. And if 20 glasses get broken, you need to make sure you've charged the client a damage deposit, or you have contractual terms that says it's their liability. So that's one thing to factor in when you're doing your quote. But in terms of a service-based quote, for example, my quote might be a breakdown of what I will deliver and the price attached to that service. So everything from the initial styling consultation through to delivery on the day, providing design mood boards and all of that. I kind of put that as a summary page first of what the duties and what's included in my service, and then I'll put the fee for that service, which is whatever the current fee I'm charging. These do increase over time the longer you've been in business. Then I will also put a charge for any additional team members. So one thing you will come to realise is it is always good to have a team of people. I have a wedding on Friday and it's 30 people, and I have a wedding academy student joining, and I also have one of my assistants who's a wedding academy alumni who is also a talented planner and stylist, and she's joining me. It's a 30-person wedding, but we have a lot of steaming, a lot of things to do. There's a lot of different areas. There's lots of LED candles, literally 70 LED candles or something. So always think about team costs, because likely, unless it's a teeny tiny wedding with not much to do, you are always going to need support. So you may want to decide what your rate is for a freelance person to come and assist you. I have worked with lots of students with work experience opportunities, but I have also regular freelancers, or if I can't work with a regular freelancer, I might do a shout out and work with someone one-off, and I will have a day rate or an hourly rate that I pay them. So I put in the top end of my assistant costs into the quote to allow a bit of buffer, and some allocation for their expenses if I know that they're going to have to travel as well. And I base that on how many people I think I need on the team for a wedding. So probably up to 100 people, well, between 60 and 100 I might have. 2 other people, so there's a team of 3, over 100, depending on how much, I might be myself and 3 others. It really depends on how long you've got to set up and what you need to produce in the time frame you've got. Obviously, some situations you might have 2 hours to change over, like a museum that closes at 5 and it needs to be changed over for a 7 p.m. event and styled and everything. So then you might need a team of 8, So you need to have worked out, based on the call, how big you think your team needs to be, and you need to put a cost for the team members. It may be that you already cost for team members in your package, but if you think you need additional, these need to be another line item on your quote. You need to think about accommodation costs. Obviously, not every wedding venue is down the road from our house. In fact, I work at a lot of venues across London and also a lot of venues outside of London, and I often will, because I have a young daughter, will go to an Airbnb near the venue with my family for a weekend for the wedding. So I may not charge the client back all of that fee, but I have a set Airbnb or a set hotel fee per night. And if it includes a setup day or pack down the next day, then you need to charge for 2 nights. So think about accommodation. Think about transport and mileage, if you need to get any public transport anywhere, or taxis. Like in London, often I don't go by car. Driving, we won't drive. I will go by taxi because actually they can go in the bus lanes, I can get there quicker, and I don't have to pay congestion charge. So I'll put like taxi costs on there. Or you might include mileage. You can look up on HMRC current mileage rates and work out approximately how far the drive is there and back, and you may also want to include mileage for any site visits you need to do or any meetings. You don't need to break it down by that, you could just put one lump sum mileage cost. And when you're putting in your service as a whole, as I said before, when you've built your packages, you should be basing this on the amount of hours, site visits, overheads. I mean, you may include mileage in your package if you say this includes travel up to 50 miles or what have you. That's quite a common one. So you may have allocated for that in your package, but they're getting married 100 miles away and you need to add extra mileage. So those are the main things that I would put in a quote. If it's really early days and they're still toying with guest numbers and it's all a bit up in the air, I may just put it in kind of terms and conditions at the bottom, like accommodation costs to be confirmed, but as an indication, 2 nights times X amount per night. And the same with team members and the same with mileage if people don't have all that information yet. So that's really what you want to focus on when you're putting out your pricing in your quote. And as I said, if you're someone who's offering additional things, like I might offer decorations, so I may be like, if I know from the outset that they want to hire out my cylinder lanterns with candles, then I have a price for those, including the candles, including time to wash it beforehand or after the event, that kind of thing. So you may want to include that at the beginning if they're coming to you with a very specific vision. Often with design and styling, I do the design first and then I will put together a second proposal for anything I am providing and the costs for that. But it really depends how you're running your styling business. So that's step 3, working out your pricing. And remember, in your package pricing and in any quote, you need to make sure you've allowed for all overheads, all expenses, and your time. When you're first starting out, don't make the mistake of just putting out like decor hire and then you haven't factored in time cleaning or transporting or paying for that up front and the overheads of that, delivery and everything. And people quote differently. Like I was just looking at some florist quotes this morning, and some of them build in labour, installation, and materials into their each line item. So it may be like floral arch with XYZ and then £1,500, and they've included labour. Or I had a quote from a florist this morning or yesterday where they put labour, freelancers, design fee all separately. So really the quotes for each floral installation or arrangement were really for the components and maybe some of the like and the delivery or what have you, and everything else, the actual making it and installing it, um, and freelancers to join the team was and design time was quoted separately. So step 4, sorry that was a bit long-winded, but there's just so much to consider with costing. But once you get into it, it becomes really easy. It's just also easy to undersell yourself in the beginning. So my biggest advice is really think about your costs. You want to be in profit. You don't want to realise that you've completely underquoted and you're paying them to do their wedding. Okay, so step 4, making your quote proposal stand out. As I said, just throwing some costs on a paper is not good enough in this industry. You want to make it look beautiful. So my quote proposals, as an example, I'm not saying mine are perfect, but they'll have a branded cover with my logo, the names of the couples, the venue or location and their date, and a title that might say, wedding styling proposal. And that's all done in my brand colours and brand fonts. So I've got that. And then on the opening page, I have a note to them, kind of, dear so and so and so, I'm really excited that you're considering anemone for the styling of your upcoming wedding. Included in this proposal, following on from the call we had on X day, and then a short, very short paragraph with a sign off from myself. You don't have to include this. Another easy page to put at the front there would just be a kind of about page, a picture of you, a picture of you working, or a picture of some of your work or your studio or what have you, if you're a florist, and a little bit about you and the way you work. Could be exactly copied from your website with a couple of tweaks, but that's a nice page to put in. So really you're kind of introducing yourself and kind of saying how excited you are. Then I have a summary page, and this is where taking note of keywords really comes in. So I will have there a bit more detail about the wedding that they've all put on my pre-consultation form. So both their names, their venue or location, amount of guests, budget, and then I will write I break it down into 2 sections. I'll put, what do I call it? Maybe I call it mood and style. I can't remember, but I'll kind of describe the feeling and the experience that they want to create, just like 2 sentences, and then I'll put the actual aesthetic details. I can't remember quite how I'll title it, but I'll put a couple of small paragraphs, or if it's a small job, I might just put basically a small brief, a couple of sentences, and it might be something like, an intimate and cosy winter wedding at Fitzrovia Chapel, abundant with warm candlelight and earthy florals. That would be an example. And I've taken all those words from things they've said to me or described to me on the call. If you hate working with that, it can just, if you work in Canva, I think they have an AI thing now that adds a bit of sparkle to your proposal, so you can always try that. But literally it could be a sentence or 2, but it just helps them understand that you've listened to them and you've got it, because they're not just interested in the price, they're interested in whether you feel like the right person. So I have that as the summary page. Then I go directly into the breakdown of the service, and for this it's literally like I do bullet points. It's like includes 2-hour initial styling consultation plus styling consultation follow-up calls as required. It includes X amount of venue visits. It includes sourcing and the suppliers I know they need to be sourced. Again, this is gathering information. If you know that they've got a florist already and a cake maker and a stationer, then actually you're not having to source those, but you could put that you need to liaise with all existing clients. I will detail everything in my service, all the work, the design work, the mood boards, the style guide, and then the prep for delivering the event itself on the day, all of that kind of thing. So I put a breakdown summary of the service, And at the bottom, I put the fee, or on the next page, I just detail all the costs. So I put the fee for the styling service, which I've detailed on the page before, and then any other expenses which I've already talked about. And I'll just do them line by line, and then at the bottom I'll put a total, and I'll put a note for any potential additionals that could be approved further down the process. Then on my final page, I have a summary of my main T's and C's, or you could have a note that says, upon booking, terms and conditions will be sent to you, before the booking is finalised, and will require signing. Another nice thing to put on the back page, I put it in my email, next steps. But if you're doing it through something like Dubsado, where you're not really following up with a personally written email, it's kind of like sent out as a link to your client management system, then you may include links to your terms and conditions there, or it may be that you have a next steps element. So you've kind of got your intro or about, your summary of their brief, your breakdown of the service, your breakdown of costs, and then T's and C's and or a kind of next steps. Because you want them to know that once they've looked at this proposal, what is the next steps if you want to book. I also talk about that on a consultation call. You don't want to leave them being like, oh, it's great to talk to them, but I don't know what we would do now. So that's that. I'm just going to have a look at a question from Becky. One thing I'm unsure about is how much information to give a couple on a quote so you aren't giving away your ideas away for free, just so they don't take your ideas and go off and do it themselves. Excellent question, because one thing I was going to mention, which I forgot up until this point, is at the beginning, I used to put a mood board in the front of my proposals to get them excited. And I would expect mood boards from a florist, for example. If I've sent them a style guide and I've briefed them in for loads of stuff, whenever I get a initial florist proposal that's just costs, the client never picks them. You want to sell it in with imagery and ideas. It can just be things you pulled from Pinterest or Instagram, and you can put a little note that says, not, it's indicative of style and shape, but not necessary scale, exact flowers, that kind of thing. But I learnt very early on, there is no point spending half an hour or an hour basically doing them a first draft of a mood board to try and win them over, and then they don't book. Occasionally, if I feel like it's something I really need to sell in, I will put a summary page of recent work, and I will pick and choose what photos. So if I know that they want an all white wedding, then I'll put in most of my white and pastel work. If I know that they want something bright and more modern, then I'll put in that kind of work. But that is literally just picking a load of photos from my portfolio that I think will suit this client, and that's like a 5-minute job. I would not be doing any other work than that. But I know, Becky, that you're also doing flowers. So it's finding the middle ground where you're giving them a flavour, and then you're doing some more extensive work once they've booked. And I'm not sure I have a definitive answer from you, because when I do work directly with florists, I now expect a decent proposal with some, at least, some decent images and stuff. But then I do have fantastic florists who their Instagram does all the talking for them, and because they're so desirable, they can get away with just sending an initial price breakdown. But you've got to, I will say, I've got a couple of florists who go above and beyond with their quotes, and when the client sees them, it's really hard for them to even think about picking anyone else. But I think for your initial styling proposals, you want to find a middle ground, and maybe mention that as we move forward, you'll present more specific proposals for flowers. I think would probably be the best way around that. Hope that answers your question, and let me know if you have any further questions. So step 5, planning your process. Now, as I said, you really want to, either in the proposal itself or as part of the email when you're sending it out, you really want to let them know what next steps are. And you want to have a system in place so that you, at some stage, at the beginning, when you've got 1 or 2 inquiries coming in, and you're like, thinking about them and probably obsessing about them. But as you go further in the business, I just went through all my Squarespace inquiry forms and was just like, oh, I'd forgotten about that inquiry. Did I chase it up? And then noticing that I had chased it up, because I have a system. I usually put a note on my to-do list that I've got X amount of inquiries and the names. And if I've sent out my brochure and I've not heard back from them, or I've done a proposal for them, then I'll have a lead time to follow up. So a week ago, I had a call with a couple. I've left it till this week because I'm aware that it's Christmas and they have lots on, but I'm following up today to see if they want to, if they've got any questions ahead of Christmas, whether they want to book, whether they want to touch base in the new year. I know they're talking to other planners, so I'm not necessarily holding out, but it was a good call, so we shall see. But you need a follow-up process. You need to be like, okay, I'm going to send out the quote proposal on this date, and then however many days later, I'm going to follow up, and this is my kind of template email I'm going to send just to follow up. And then if they don't respond to that, a week after that, I'm going to send this follow-up. I will say this year more than ever, ghosting has been an issue. So yes, it's disrespectful. Yes, it's annoying. Yes, it's way more devastating when it's early on in your business and you don't have as many inquiries and then you never hear back from anyone. But it does happen. It is rude, but I think people are busy. I think you don't know what's going on in people's lives. And sometimes people just don't ever get back to you. I've literally had calls and sent quote proposals out this year and heard nothing. And I have sent 3 follow-up emails and still heard nothing. And I think part of it is to do with also people hate rejecting people. And whilst I don't take it personally, and I will probably just say, oh, if you're happy to share, let me know who you went with, or if you've got any feedback, I'm happy to take it on board. People hate rejecting people, so that's sometimes why that happens. But you want to have a system where you are following up to make sure you know, or at least you've done your best to find out if they're moving forward with you or not. I will say you don't want to jump on their back. Personally, 48 hours after a call would be too much for me, because I know how busy people are. Especially most people want to work with professionals because they don't have enough time to do it for themselves, and they want it to be of a high standard, so they want to work with a professional. But sometimes people need longer. I would say minimum 3 days, 5 days maybe, if you know that they've got to take time to look over the weekend and spend some time together and go through everything. And then you have intervals where you follow up after that. If they do want to book, you need to have your process in place ready to go for onboarding them and getting it booked in. So you need to have your T's and C's or contract in place, which you need to share with them and get them to sign, or have in your terms and conditions that on receipt of payment the terms are considered approved. You need to invoice. Again, invoicing and contracts and terms and conditions documents can be sent via your client management system if you're using one, or you can just have templates for these. You can buy legal contracts from certain legal companies. There's definitely one in the UK called Sanford Gold, I think, who do specifically cater to the wedding and events industry. But you need to have all that in place. As a minimum, as a stylist, you need to have some legally binding terms and conditions and a professional invoice with the client's details on. And of course, you need to have things like your insurance in place and anything else you need as you go to deliver the wedding. But when you go to book someone on, those are the things you need. And then you need to think about how you onboard them. For example, once a client's booked, I confirm receipt of their payment, I send their deposit, I send an e-receipt. Then within a week of that, I send them my welcome guide, I onboard them to my planning and styling software, and with and part of my welcome pack explains how we will use that. And then I'll let them know I'll be in touch in X amount of time with the first kind of update, or if we're yet to book in a styling call, I'll give them some dates for our first styling consultational meeting, so that we can get to work. Really upbeat, really excited, like can't wait to get started on your wedding design, that kind of thing. So think about your next steps. You don't want them to book you and then be like, oh, we're having doubts because actually we haven't heard from them and we don't really know what's going on. So that's the fifth and final step. I hope you found that useful. As I said, people do things differently, but I have refined this over 5 or 6 years, and I do find that it really works for me at this stage in your business. And it can feel like a lot at the beginning, but really, you don't need everything. You just need the key things to really sell your services to your client. And then as you grow, you will add templates, you will add processes, and that's totally a work in progress. I hope you found that helpful. I'm going to sign off now. I'm going to get on with wrapping up for this wedding and winding down for Christmas, updating all my clients, giving them little to-do lists for over Christmas if they've got time. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, and I will see you in the new year. Thanks for joining, and let me know, comment, tag me in any comments, or drop me an email, Martha at Wedding Academy Global, if you've got any follow-up questions. Bye.